Wonderful folks on my channel. Welcome back to another session where we explore the richness of the English language. Today, we're diving into some intriguing idioms and expressions from the Power English radio show. So, grab a cup of tea, sit back, and let's unravel the language magic together. 1. Tie oneself in knots. Alright, let's kick things off with the expression tie oneself in knots. This idiom means to make oneself anxious or upset, like when you're in a real bind. Picture yourself tangled up in a mental knot of worry or confusion. For example, I've been tying myself in knots over my fight with Bruno. Look, you both said things you shouldn't have. It'll be fine in a few days. Don't tie yourself in knots over every minor mistake. Everyone makes errors from time to time. 2. Pry someone away from something. Now, let's move on to pry someone away from something. This expression involves convincing someone to stop looking at something or detaching them from a particular activity or habit. It often implies a strong attachment or resistance. Here's how it plays out. Can you pry yourself away from the football game and come help me? Can I pry you away from that book to join me for a glass of wine? It's challenging to pry him from his daily routine. He's quite resistant to change. 3. Follow directions. Next up, we have follow directions. This one is pretty straightforward. It means to do something in the way one is instructed. Think of it as following a roadmap or recipe. For example, I followed the directions to put it together, but the shelf doesn't look right. The success of the project depends on each team member's ability to follow directions and collaborate effectively. 4. Don't bother. Last but not least, we have don't bother. This phrase suggests that making an effort is unnecessary, inconvenient, or not worth the trouble. We've all been there, right? Don't bother. I'm almost done. I already fixed the issue, so don't bother calling the IT support team. Don't bother making reservations. The restaurant is usually not crowded on weekdays. A. I'll adjust it. B. Don't bother. There you have it, language enthusiasts. Idioms and expressions from Power English that add color and flair to our conversations. Until next time, happy learning.
And I'm Cameron Word.
So, anything new? No.
No. The same old, same old.
Same old.
Same old. What about you, Kristen?
Yeah, it's always busy. But I must say, I recently enrolled my mother into a senior center where she goes every day and spends her day there instead of watching TV all day. And it is a miracle.
So she's still, at night she's with you.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
she sleeps at your
wonderful.
home, but during the day.
That's right, because really in the States, it's kind of like one or the other, which is like if you're not able, then you go into a nursing home.
Yes.
But this program allows you to keep your parent at home, but you're working, right?
Right.
The child, son or daughter is working, and so they spend the day doing activities and resting if they want.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful, wonderful program.
That's great. Because everyone needs to be doing something.
Oh, yes.
If you're just sitting at home,
it just can't be good for even young people. Like you need a purpose, you need to do something, be active.
Right, yes.
So I'm very, very happy about
Well, very good. I'm glad that worked out.
Thank you. All right. Speaking of dinners and holiday, we were talking about holiday dinner. What can I do for you is the subtitle.
Yes.
I like this question. What can I do for you?
How can I help?
How can I help you? It's a very kind of generous question.
Yes.
What can I do for you? How can I help you make it easier?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you are in knots, tie yourself in knots. Knots.
Yeah.
When we think of this word, we think of like knots as in like
Like knots in a rope?
In a rope,
like
right.
Knots in a string?
Yeah, so how can you tie yourself in knots? What does this mean?
If you're tying yourself in knots, it means you're very worried. And it just makes you very anxious and upset.
Right. Pry someone away from something?
To pry someone away from something means to pull them away. And maybe in a real physical sense of pulling someone away from something.
Right.
Or just trying to move their attention to something else.
Okay, and the spelling is P-R-Y.
Yes.
And if you follow directions?
Means you're doing as the instructions say.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and listen to our dialogue.
Molly, Danny said you were in here tying yourself in knots trying to prepare an amazing feast.
I'm doing my best, little brother. Now, where is that daughter of yours? She's always such a good assistant.
You'll have to pry her away from her phone, I'm afraid, but I'll ask her if she wants to help.
No, don't bother. I think you can follow directions well enough.
I'll do my best. What can I do for you?
Keep stirring the soup while I put these pies in the oven.
There you go. Carl says, Molly, Danny said you were in here tying yourself in knots trying to prepare an amazing feast. Okay. Mom is in the kitchen cooking a big dinner.
Yes.
And she is tying herself in knots.
Yes.
And why? Because she's trying to prepare an amazing feast. Not just a dinner, but a feast.
Yes.
So if you tie yourself in knots, are you a rope? Why are we using this comparison?
Yeah, so you're not a rope, but I guess visually it would make sense when you are anxious, when you're worried.
Yeah.
You know how you like rub your hands and your arms together? It's like your arms are being tied together in knots.
Right.
Because you're so worried.
It's true.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of like go inward.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're anxious and like kind of nervous.
Yeah. You're constantly you're always moving your hands and, I don't know what is this going to be okay?
Right.
That is the feeling whenever you say you are tying yourself in knots.
And that is what Mom is doing. And she's trying to prepare an amazing feast.
Yes.
And our power vocab is the word prepare. So prepare in the sense of prepare dinner.
Yes.
Or feast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, prepare here is really about making food.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah? So it's very commonly used when you're preparing a meal.
Right. Right. We often use this word, I'm preparing, a dinner for two.
Yes.
It's another way of saying just making.
Right.
Yeah.
And it feels like there may be some complexity to the food.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know if I would say, I have prepared toast. Like, it doesn't...
I have prepared juice.
Yeah, I have prepared ramen.
Right.
Unless it's like very, nice, complicated ramen.
Yeah.
It does sound a little
like
weird.
A seafood ramen, maybe.
Yeah, how they put the egg and the pie and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, I guess you could say you could prepare a sandwich.
Yeah.
That would be the lowest level of complexity that I think it would be okay to use it.
I agree. I've prepared a sandwich. I'll prepare you a sandwich.
Yeah. But that's often like, you're going on a trip?
Right.
Let me prepare a sandwich to put in your lunchbox.
Right. Or let me prepare your lunch.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, Mom is doing a lot of work, and Mom is saying, I'm doing my best, little brother. Now, where is that daughter of yours? She's always such a good assistant. So Carl is Mom's younger brother. And Carl, the younger brother, says,
you'll have to pry her away from her phone, I'm afraid. But I'll ask her if she wants to help.
Okay. So Mom is asking her niece for help. And Carl says, you'll have to pry her away from her phone.
Yeah.
So to pry someone away from something.
Yes. So first let's look at this word pry. P-R-Y.
Yes.
It's an old English word.
Oh.
It's been in the English language for a long time.
Okay.
But it means to pull or rip off of something.
Yes.
So, if anyone knows what a crowbar is,
yes,
it's this piece of metal that you stick between two pieces of wood, and you cut, because you want to break those two pieces apart.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that is what prying is. But now we can use it for things like pry your daughter away from her phone. Because the daughter is always on her phone.
Yes.
It's like she's stuck to her phone.
Right.
And you have to pull her off.
That's right.
And use a lot of force.
That's right.
To get her away from her phone.
So oftentimes, now it's her phone, but before it would be maybe children and TV to pry them away from TV.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like they're glued together.
Yeah.
And mom says what?
No, don't bother. I think you can follow directions well enough.
Okay. So mom is saying, Carl's like, okay, I'll ask her. But she says, no, don't bother.
Yes.
Very simple answer.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Don't bother.
Don't bother means don't do it. But with the feeling of, it's too much trouble, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't bother. It's like, don't bother yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? I think you can follow directions well enough.
Yeah.
Mom is saying, okay, I think you can help me instead of your daughter. You can follow directions.
Yes.
Following directions. What does this mean?
To follow directions means to do the things you have been instructed to do. So if you're having to make a recipe, looking at the recipe and doing what the recipe says is following directions.
That's right.
Yeah.
And generally people really cannot have a hard time following directions.
Some people do.
Some people do.
I mean, even in school with young children, the teacher is always saying, little Timmy is not good at following directions.
Yeah. I tell him 100 times and he just doesn't listen.
Do it. Yeah.
Okay. So Carl says, I'll do my best. What can I do for you?
And then mom says, keep stirring the soup while I put these pies in the oven.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So she's getting some help from her younger brother.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and listen to that one more time.
Molly, Danny said you were in here tying yourself in knots trying to prepare an amazing feast.
I'm doing my best, little brother. Now, where is that daughter of yours? She's always such a good assistant.
You'll have to pry her away from her phone, I'm afraid, but I'll ask her if she wants to help.
No, don't bother. I think you can follow directions well enough.
I'll do my best. What can I do for you?
Keep stirring the soup while I put these pies in the oven.
Okay, tie yourself in knots. It means to really kind of be anxious or upset. Like that feeling in your stomach when it's like all tangled up,
Yeah.
I've been tying myself in knots over my fight with Bruno.
Look, you both said things you shouldn't have. It'll be fine in a few days. Yeah.
So if you've been tying yourself in knots, it means that you are creating anxiety.
Yes.
You are causing stress.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it's not needed, but it's understandable. Like if they're maybe, to give a very extreme example, a mother is waiting for her son to come back from war.
Yes.
Yes. And the mother's just at home and she's worried about him.
And she's tying herself in knots.
Right.
Yes.
Or, you heard there was an accident and maybe your husband or your wife was in the accident.
Yeah.
But you don't know yet.
Oh, no.
You're waiting on the news and you're tying yourself in knots, just waiting for some news on how things will come about.
Right. I tied myself in knots while waiting for my test results from the doctor. This is a great way to use this expression. It's kind of like you're worrying before you find out what's going on.
Right.
that before.
I think this expression would be used a lot in the hospital.
Yeah.
Let's say a loved one is in surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're waiting?
And you're just waiting for the surgery to finish.
Oh, my gosh.
You can totally tie yourself in knots.
Yeah. It's unavoidable.
Or, let's say someone stops answering their phone.
Yeah.
They always answer their
phone.
But they aren't looking at the text messages. They aren't, and you're like, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening?
Right.
And they're like, oh, I was in the shower.
Yeah.
I couldn't look at my phone.
Right. Or, how about like students who recently took the Sunung?
Oh, yes.
Right? And then you're waiting for the test results. I mean, your whole future is dependent on it. You're tying yourself in knots.
Right. Or you're watching a reality show.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for the final announcement.
Yeah.
And they're like, and the winner is.
Yeah.
After this commercial break. And you spend like 4 minutes like, oh my gosh, who won? Who won?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Pry someone away from something means to convince someone to stop looking at something.
Yes.
Like that person is glued.
Yeah.
To whatever.
Stuck to it.
Okay. Can you pry yourself away from the football game and come help me?
Huh? Oh, of course. Yeah, 1 more minute.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I pry you away from that book to join me for a glass of wine?
Yeah.
So in these cases, it's a video game.
Yeah.
A phone.
Yeah.
Or a book. A football game. TV. Right?
Mm-hmm.
To pry them away means to say, can you stop?
Yeah. Can you stop?
Yeah.
You can also use this when people are fighting or when they are kissing very passionately. So, like 16, 17, 18, like young lovers.
Young love.
And they're like in the park.
Yeah.
And they're just
all over each other.
Kissing, and you just have to like go and pry them away from one another. It's like, stop touching.
Yeah.
So it could be the kissing passionately, or it could be fighting. Like a fight starts in school.
Yes.
The teacher may go in and pry the students away from each other.
Oh, yeah, like the principal, the teacher, security guard.
Yeah.
That's right. It's any time when you're kind of stuck together.
Yeah.
Glued together for whatever reason. And you got to pry it away from each other.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Or it could be that you're like working on a model plane or a hobby.
Yes.
And like you've been doing it for hours. Like you want to pry them away.
Yeah.
To stop doing
focus on something else.
That's right. Okay. All right. Follow directions is if someone tells you to do something, you do it.
Yes.
I've never made a cake before.
This bag has everything you need. If you can follow directions, you can do it.
Okay. So I must say, when it comes to American cooking or Western cooking, if you follow directions according to the recipe, it may not be perfect, but it doesn't come out terrible unless you're really bad at cooking.
Yeah, it's kind of like chemistry class.
Yeah.
You're just like,
mix
1 cup of milk.
Yes.
4 eggs. Like, it's just all numbers.
That's right. That's right. Whereas Korean cooking, it's a little bit different. Following directions doesn't always turn out well. Okay. I follow the directions to put it together, but the shelf doesn't look right.
You know when you have to put the furniture together by yourself?
Do it yourself. Yep.
They don't even have words anymore.
It's all pictures.
It's just pictures.
It's just pictures. And I must say that one place, the Swedish place.
The blue and yellow place?
Yeah. They do a pretty good job with the picture. So but if you don't follow direction, even one step, you're done. All right. Don't bother is a great pattern. This means what?
Don't worry about it. You don't have to do it.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Don't bother. I'm almost done.
Don't bother. She already said she didn't want to come with us.
Yeah. Don't ask her again.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Don't bother. Like, oh, do you want me to pick you up at the station?
Don't bother. I'll get a taxi.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's
I'm
fine.
really happy to.
No.
Okay, don't bother. Okay. prepare power vocabulary was just 준비하다.
Yeah.
But the way we use this in this context means that you are preparing a meal.
Yeah.
Right. And
making food.
Yeah. And we often do use prepare lunch, prepare dinner, prepare the
banquet.
The banquet, the feast.
Even a snack. Prepare a snack.
Prepare a snack. It's good. All right. Do check out the definition on page 96 and let's thank our sponsor.
한국토익위원회에서